Welcome back to Talkin Shop with ShopSabre. I'm Brandon, back with Nick. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Not too bad. What do we got? Episode, I don't even know.
127, I think.
127? Is that where we're at? Wow. I try to announce that right away, and then I always forget to look it up before we get on this thing, and then I'm like, what are we on? And
I think it was 126 last week. So
Is that what it was?
Assuming that's correct, then 127 should
Let's
be
just
correct.
call it 127. It might be 127.2. I don't know. But yeah, no, I know we had a lot of fun last week, but you have more fun tonight at your house, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. There's a jewelry party happening. Like, apparently it's permanent jewelry. I don't know what that really
What does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know if they, like
weld it to
staple
their
your
head?
arm or what. I have no idea. Not really sure, but it's like some permalink, something other. I think it's
Staple
really just an excuse for a bunch of girls to get together, drink wine, and tell their significant others they're going to a jewelry party. That's my take on it.
They're just getting
but
hammered.
Yeah.
I love that you looked at your phone right before we came on here and you said, oh, God, I might as well work till 8 p.m. tonight. And I was like, what's going on? Got a jewelry party going on at home. Oh. Well, good news
But
is
then I'm like, well, I better maybe go home and make sure the kids are fed dinner and entertained.
I don't know. I like the idea of you working till 8. That sounded good to me. A lot more was going to get done here. No, it's kind of that time of year, though. We're kind of working crazy hours already.
Yeah.
It's fun with the year end, and obviously there's a lot of different things we could talk about this time of year, to be honest. Like Christmas, we could talk about Christmas. Natalie wanted you to talk about Christmas.
It's too early for that.
It's
Let's
too
talk
early.
about Thanksgiving first.
Thanks, dude. I love Thanksgiving.
It's the best, dude. That's like the only time I mix foods together is on Thanksgiving. I know it's weird. It's totally random and like a really random thing to say, but I love turkey, mashed potatoes, corn, and gravy so much, and it's the only time that I'll mix food is potatoes, gravy, and corn.
So are you one of those people that like your food can't touch on the plate normally?
I mean, I try not to, but like I just don't usually mix things together.
I'm the guy that like if I mix it together, do I get more on my plate? I'll take that.
I mean, even like I'm as weird as when I like eat French fries. I'll like grab 2 or 3 that are all the same size to eat them, and make sure that they're all like I don't know. It's weird. They
Yeah,
just have to
I
be the same length, and then you get down to the end, and there's like 3 left, and they're all 3 different lengths. Then you got to eat one at a time.
dude,
It's just weird.
that's kind of weird. I came home this last week. So my kids play hockey, and Caden's a goalie. So we have twice as many practices because we have regular practice and then we have goalie practice. And so I had to take my kid to his goalie practice. And so my wife met me at goalie practice because she had to drop Caden off while I was coming from work. And I'm like, yeah, you can just go home because our other son wasn't feeling great. I'm like, you just go home and, I'll take care of Caden's hockey practice. She's like, okay, cool. So she left. Well, I got home and my house looked like Christmas threw up on it. She had spent the entire day because she had been home that day. And she spent the whole day decorating our house for Christmas. And I was so mad. I came in and I was like, it's not even Thanksgiving yet. And Thanksgiving's like one of my favorite holidays.
Yeah.
Like, I love Thanksgiving. So I was really bummed about that. But now I'm in the full spirit of Christmas. I put Christmas lights up this last weekend.
How'd that go?
Well, Travis tried to make me fall off my ladder. He drove by my house honking. So that's how that went.
But you didn't. Clark Griswold it down
I did
the
not.
front of the house with the ladder.
Nope, I did not. I did not fall off the house. I didn't finish the lights either, though. They showed up late in the day on this weekend, and we had hockey weird. And so I only had a few hours to start hanging lights. So I got as much done as I could in the few hours I had, but got to finish a few more strings or strands. Strands, right?
Strands. Yeah. You probably have to wait till the weekend, though, huh? Since we
Yeah.
get here in the dark, leave in the dark.
That's exactly what I was joking with my wife about that because I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll just do it tomorrow, is what I told her because this was Sunday. She's like, all right, sounds good. And then I looked out the window at 5 o'clock and I'm like, oh, it's dark. I'm not going to work on Christmas lights today. So I text her and I'm like, I guess the Christmas lights are waiting until Saturday. So
Well, at least we're having an extended fall, and it's
Dude,
nice out, and it's
it's-
still going to be 50 degrees this weekend. So
it's like perfect timing. Yeah.
that's great.
I saw it's supposed to get cold the following week. So it's like perfect timing for me to get my Christmas lights all wrapped up.
And then are you just going to leave them?
Yeah, they're permanent lights.
That's sweet.
I bought the LED permanent lights that stay under the soffit of your house.
They probably cost a little bit more, but it's probably
did.
worth not having to take them down and put them up all the time, right?
Yeah, cheap Brandon bought the cheap lights. I went out and bought the cheapies, and my wife overruled me. She was like, no, we're not doing that. She's like, buy the ones that are color change. My wife's really into she loves throwing parties, Super
Yeah.
Bowl party, and I don't know, bar mitzvah party and, whatever
Permanent
party.
jewelry party.
Yeah, permanent jewelry party. Like whatever party she could throw, she wants to throw. But like my wife's really awesome at like, I don't know, party planning. And so she goes themed on everything. And so she saw an opportunity for the house lights can match whatever my party is.
Also, they change colors even?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
You can program them.
That's awesome.
But I saw it as I could change the house colors to every sports team I like watching.
There you go.
So that's what I'm going to do with them. My house is going to be just purple and gold, red and green, all the Minnesota colors.
Sweet. Just don't make it green and gold.
It'll never be green and gold.
Good. Until your kids start trying to prank you. Oh. When you're not home, you come home and your house is all Packer colors.
I will literally cut the lights. I'm going to take the remote away. That's a good point. Take it away so they can't do that.
That's nice though, where you don't have to. Now you don't have to deal with them anymore. They're up there.
Well, that's in a perfect world. Okay, we both understand that that's not how this is going to work. It's the first weekend it's going to malfunction. I'm going to be out there working on
trying to find the one that isn't working that's causing the whole string to go out.
Or they're just going to fall off because they're supposed to like adhesive to the house.
Oh, geez.
The way they attach, like there's not like a clip for them.
So you don't staple it or clip it or nothing?
There's no clips or staples on them. They're like adhesive, like this highly sticky 3M.
Hopefully it's like duct tape.
It's like 3M adhesive. It's pretty.
That'll work then.
It was pretty good, but I don't know. I'm skeptical.
Oh man.
So I'm gonna find a way to staple them to the house. I think. Maybe I'll ask Natalie on what kind of staples they use for this jewelry.
Oh, yeah. Good point. That's probably a good idea.
We'll use that. But in all honesty, I wanted to talk today about new school versus old school. And what I mean by that is I was talking about new school versus old school fabrication. When you kind of think about what we're looking at in the world today, like there's a lot of old school fabrication out there. I mean, does that make sense, Nick?
Yeah.
So maybe I'm not making sense, but
no, it makes sense.
My brain was, I talked to a lot of people throughout the day and throughout the week, honestly, throughout my life about, the old school way of doing things, right? Guys who are cutting things by hand, the hand crafters, the guys who like are just hung up on like, I can do it by hand, right?
Yep.
And then you look at like the new generation, the next generation, right? They don't want to do it by hand, right? They're looking at technology. What can I do, honestly, to make my life easier, right? I mean, we just, be honest, my generation doesn't want to work as hard as my dad's generation did. Like we try to encompass a lot of the technology and the advancements that we have in different things. And it started to make me look at the grand scheme of things and like new school versus old school fab. And you start to look at a shop and it really, I don't know, it can really affect, the future of the company based on that mentality.
And I think, everybody hears you say old school and they're probably thinking you're talking 20, 30, 40 years ago. But how much has technology changed in just the last 5 years, 10 years? I mean, old school isn't necessarily back when your grandfather did it, right? I mean, it's, heck, like you said, your dad did things way different than he would do things now if he had a shop, right?
Well, I think that's the truth right there. Is I think a lot of people get hung up on this, like having to look super far back, right? Like I always joke with my friends, like if I tell you to look at a 20-year-old truck, what comes to mind? It's like an old school, like 1980s truck, right?
Yep.
That's 40 years ago.
That's crazy
like,
think,
yeah, like a 20 years ago truck is 2000s.
Yeah.
Like it's not what you think it was. So like I think a lot of people's mentality, especially my generation, like they're young in the mind, right? Yep. They still think that like we act like we're 18, but it's like, no, a lot of these, my generation are in their 40s now.
And I think too, like to go a little bit different topic, I think when people say that the new generation doesn't want to work as hard, I think sometimes that gets encompassed as all a bad thing, right? Yeah, there's some that don't want to work hard, but at the same time, there's some that are trying to embrace the technology to make their jobs easier and more efficient. So while they may be working, I guess, less hard, as some people would say, like they're not necessarily being lazy.
But is it efficiency, though, is what they're looking at? Like,
100%.
Yeah, there's some lazy people out there. Don't get me wrong. But I'm going to be honest. There's lazy people in every generation.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the difference, here's the difference in, like, my honest take is, like, my dad's generation had just as many lazy people. Like, I believe that, thoroughly. But you just didn't see it as much because there wasn't social media.
Right.
You couldn't see people's mentalities because they couldn't post it all over the internet. Like, when you look at today's generations, Like it's all public facing, right? There's a camera in front of everything.
All the time.
Like if they screw up, it's on camera. Like I think about even when I was a kid, like I screwed up a lot.
Oh yeah.
But no, I got away with a lot of it because there was nobody had a camera in front of their house to show that I spun the car out and hit their trash can.
That's funny because I was doing photos with a kid this weekend that was we talked about the same thing, and how he has like a group of friends that doesn't necessarily, record and do all this stuff when they're doing things. And I was like, yeah, back when I was in high school, we didn't have a way to do that. Like, yeah, we had cell phones, but it was like the T9 text, you had to push a button 47 times to hit one letter, right?
Correct.
There was no cameras, there was nothing. Exactly. And if they did have a camera, it was like grainy 1940s black and white TV, right?
Correct.
So yeah, you could record some things, but nobody would be able to. We all did stupid stuff, like everybody did. The kids that do the stupid stuff now were the same kids were doing it 25 years ago when I was in high school.
Correct.
It's just not as prevalent to be seen.
Yeah, like now you can see it exactly, and it's like, and that's how I feel about like technology. So like as we incorporate more technology, a lot of these shops, as you're looking at it, it's like, well, yeah, you can still do it the way you did it, right? We can do things the old school way, but it doesn't make you a better company.
No, not at all.
Right? It's not making you a better company because you can do it the old school way. Like if anything, it's the old school fab just is harder. Like it doesn't mean your product's worse, right? It doesn't mean your product's better. Like it's just a lot of times a harder job, And I see a lot of, so I have several customers of mine who are, older generation, fabricators, right? They have some of these skills by hand that are like, they blow me away. Like some of the stuff they do by hand, but they still are incorporating CNC plasmas and CNC routers, and they're adding these pieces of equipment to their shop, not because they don't think they can do it without it. It's because like their capabilities plus technology, it's out of this world.
Yeah.
Like you watch, like example is Lee Rodenhamel, right? I mean, a lot of you guys have probably seen, Lee's work and his videos and things, but he's one of those guys that like without a CNC machine, he's very talented. Like he can do a lot with, just simple tools.
Yep.
But you add a piece of CNC technology and he's taken the time to like learn it. And now his capabilities are like even further advanced because like he has that mindset that thinks outside of the box already. And now he pushes his tools and his equipment to the limit. So
he's doing better projects, maybe the same projects, but doing them better. Correct. And doing them way more efficient and getting, 5-10 times more done in the same amount of time as he could do one thing. Correct.
And that's exactly like my mentality here. So as like new school versus old school fab kind of looks, you have to also think about it from a perspective of, I think it's funny when you get a lot of people who they can't afford a machine right away, right? Then they get into a machine and they start to look at like what they would have done differently, right? But they sometimes forget that it's easy to cast judgment after you've done something.
For sure.
Like, as an example, you get guys who buy a piece of equipment, right? Or let's just use trucks as an example, right? That's probably the easiest one for me to explain. You go out and buy your first pickup truck, right? And you probably buy like an F-150, right? Because, it's a pickup truck, I can haul all the stuff, blah, blah. And then you start hauling trailers, and you start to realize, like, I probably should have bought a 250 or a 350, right?
Yep.
Like, it's really easy to say, I should, or, man, this truck should be this way. Like, and you critique that truck, right, that you own. Mm-hmm. But it's like, the truck served its purpose. It did what it was designed for. You just outgrew its design.
Right.
Like, the truck isn't poorly built. You used it for its full capabilities and more.
And you purchased what you could probably or maybe afford at that time. And
yeah.
The bigger one wasn't in your budget, so you went with the smaller one and maybe expected it to do more than it really is capable of.
Correct. And that's where I start to look at it from a new school versus old school technology. Like, it's easy to judge, like, okay, well, this 10-year-old machine, right, couldn't do it. Well, yeah, but it's 10 years old. Like, you have to put it in perspective of what you purchased. You bought a machine that was designed for 10 years ago.
And it was top of the line.
Correct. And that's the thing is like in its class, it probably is top of the line, but the world has outgrown it, right? The technology has outgrown it. The tooling, the whatever, like I look at CNC plasma machines as a perfect example, right? Guys try to like cut things by hand all the time and they can't hold the quality or the accuracy of a CNC machine. There's just no way. And so then, not repetitively, let's put it that way. You can't do it repetitively. So then they upgrade and they add a CNC plasma to their shop, right? And then they run that for years. But then, like, years down the road, they're like, oh man, this machine can't do this, can't do that, can't do that. And it's like, because they're comparing it to the latest technology. And it's like, well, that technology didn't exist when you bought that machine.
Right.
So of course it can't, right? But at the same token, like how much money did you make?
Enough to pay for a new machine that is upgraded, or
I would be willing to bet, yeah.
You obviously paid for your old machine more
Correct.
times than one, right?
Correct.
So you can upgrade to. I mean, it's just like when you go and trade in a car. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the cars don't hold value,
Yeah.
but it's the same type of idea, right?
Correct.
Like it's a car that's 10 years old, 8 years old, whatever it is. Like there's new stuff in cars now that you're going to want to have in a new car that you buy that you don't have in the old one. It's the same type of thing. But you can compare that to anything. I mean, you compare it to computers, TVs, anything you really buy. At some point, the technology is going to change and it's going to be newer, and you want to upgrade.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's where I kind of look at it too. Is I'm like, you have to start looking at that new school versus old school kind of mentality, right? And it's a different world we live in, right? Every day. So as you kind of get to the end of the year here and you start to look at like the future of your company, you got to start to think about it that way. Like you can't think about today. Like if you're thinking about today, you're probably already thinking behind the 8 ball, right?
Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. Think about what you can say like January of 2024 or July of 2024 that after you use your machine for 7-8 months, you can be like, gosh, back in July of 2023, way back then, look how we used to do it compared to how we do it now. In just 1 year, how much can you change your business in the way you were doing something into the way you're doing it now?
Well, that's exactly it. Like, and you start to think about that, and it's like, if you don't get ahead of it, you'll end up in a situation where like you're always chasing your tail, right? Like it's easy to buy, it's one thing I've always said to customers is you don't want to undercut your capabilities, right? Adding a CNC machine is the first step. But like, if you talk to anybody who's bought a CNC machine, they're going to be the first to tell you, like, buy the options you think you're going to need. Right?
Yep.
Like, I've seen it where guys are like, I don't need it. I'm a cabinet shop. I don't need a tool changer right now. The machine's already going to be more efficient than me cutting with a table saw. You are 100% correct.
Yep.
But it's not going to take very long before that machine needs the tool changer.
Well, I think a perfect example of it, I heard Hunter talking to a guy this morning that was talking about going between two of an RC or a Pro, I think they were talking about. And he told the guy, he's like, look, if the Pro is in your budget, he's like, go that route, because if you're talking about growing your business
Correct.
and needing more out of a machine, you're going to have to just upgrade eventually anyways. If you can do it now, just do it now so you're ahead of the game and don't have to go and try to do it later.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things where people, lose sight of it. There's an example that I like to use, and I'm going to use this because obviously I have the ability to talk on a show and people are out there kind of listening. So I run into it once in a while with, what I like to call internet trolls, okay? Like, you and I both know who they are.
Yep.
They're people that go out on the internet and try to use their voice to belittle or bash a brand or a product, right? And I'm a firm believer that if the majority is doing that, the product is probably the problem.
Yep.
Right? But if the minority is the one doing it, it's somebody who thinks they have a voice and, to be honest with you, probably is just making a living off of being a troll.
Yep.
Those people exist. So you have to be very conscious of that when you're reading reviews and what people are saying. But the one thing that I love is when you watch a customer get into a CNC machine, right? And it doesn't necessarily even have to be our brand. I'm just going to use as an example. When you run into people on the internet who own one machine but promote another one.
Yep.
Right? And then they haven't sold their machine. They haven't moved on from that machine because they can't afford the machine that they're promoting. So it's like, it's kind of a catch-22. Like, of course, if everybody wanted to go spend $150,000, that other machine might be a solution for them. But the average guy isn't going to go out and buy a $150,000 machine.
Right, and the guy that is sitting there ripping on one is still probably using that one to make money, right?
Correct.
And isn't really necessarily going to go up to that high dollar machine they're talking about while they still use the lower dollar one.
Yeah,
to make.
And not even that. Like, what blows me away about it is it's all the under table stuff sometimes. Like, they're getting kickbacks from these other companies to send you to them. Like they're being paid, and like I get approached. I'll be honest, like it happens. Like people approach us, like, "Oh, what will you give me if I tell people to come buy from you?" And I've always been like, nothing. Like I don't want you to go out and like promote the product because you're being paid to do it.
Right.
Like if you're promoting my product and you create content and it's good, like I'll work with you.
Yep.
But like it has to be organic. I don't want to buy that content, right? I can pay for advertising on Google.
Right. Or send somebody out there to badmouth other products.
Correct.
It's
just
just
shady.
a bad look.
Yeah, it's a shady. Well, because it only takes one guy to say something, and then suddenly, whoa, well, all the bad things I'm hearing is just because so and so paid them to do it.
Right.
Like that looks bad on you as a company. Like, so, if you're one of those companies out there paying people to do that, like I'd strongly recommend you reconsider the way you do things. But organic customer feedback is really what.
Typically, the products will speak for themselves.
Correct.
Right. I mean, you're gonna have the good, you're gonna have the bad, but people are gonna figure that out based on their research or even using the machines themselves.
Well, I just think it's funny because some of these guys, they outgrow the machine because of the machine's capability.
Yeah.
Like we've run into it. Guys will buy one of our machines, and then suddenly they'll, compare it to a $200,000 machine, and they're wondering like why our machine wasn't doing things like those $200,000 machines were. Well, our machine wasn't $200,000. That's why.
It wasn't built to do those
Yeah,
things.
like we build a machine that is for the average shop, right? I would say that the typical ShopSabre customer is either a 1 to 10 man shop, right? It's somebody who's getting started into CNC or looking for their second machine. They're kind of like making the upgrade from that like entry level class to like a more industrial model.
Yep.
Now, are there machines out there that are more industrial than ours? Yeah. I mean, they retail for $250,000, right? But I feel like when you consider what you get for value, like there's not a better product out there than something like us. And so that goes back to that new school versus old school, right? Like old school way was doing it with a saw. The new school way of doing it is with a CNC machine. And we're giving people the ability to really buy a machine that's competitive to the prices you get out of China. Mm-hmm. Like you think about that. We've built equipment that is competitive to Chinese pricing, but without the Chinese crap. Right? I mean, it's not a low quality machine, a low budget machine. It's a affordable machine. It's a value driven machine.
A high quality value
driven
machine.
Like, yeah. And I've never been the guy to sit here and say like, oh, a ShopSabre machine is the number one machine out of any machine you could ever buy in the world. I would never say that.
Right.
Because if you have $1 million to spend, you can buy a better machine. Right? Yep. I mean, There are machines out there, and I've talked to customers, and it's funny because the majority of customers who know me know that like I'm a very like straightforward person. If I think you're buying the wrong thing, I tell you. Mm-hmm. Like I've done it many times. I've told customers like you're buying the wrong thing, but like there's a lot of big companies that trust ShopSabre equipment. So I'm not saying like you can't use our equipment in very large. I mean, Ford Motor, Mercedes-Benz, Amazon. I mean, these companies are pretty big.
Yep.
They have the money to buy whatever they want, but our machine fits the need. And that runs in production every day, all day. Like, if used appropriately, the machines can fit. But the problem is you get guys who don't want to invest enough money in themselves, right? They want to get by with the minimum, but they want to achieve the maximum. You can't get by in life that way. Like, you either need to consider, like some of these companies we work with, they buy 2 or 3 machines to keep up with their production demands. Or if you can't afford 2 or 3 machines to keep up with the demands that you have set forward, then you have to outfit the machine appropriately to produce at the levels you're trying to achieve.
Correct. And I think some people also feel if they spend a higher amount of money on it, they're just like they can say they spent that money.
Correct.
Like, just spend it to spend it. That doesn't make any sense. So to say
that's the difference between a good business, I think, and a bad business, though. It's a status more than it's an actual investment.
But isn't that where you kind of get the guys that put on that thing online where like, oh, I have this machine or I work for this machine and this is this dollar amount machine. Why would I want to use one that's can do the same thing for a third of the price?
Well, I think some of it's misery loves company, right?
Yeah.
Once you've made a poor decision in your life, you want everybody to make the same decision so you look validated, right? There's a lot of poor businessmen out there. And I will say one thing that the internet has proven that.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of guys who they're really good at typing. They're not real great at actually running a business. And the difference in a good business is, making decisions for the future of your company, right? Not considering other things out, but just considering your company and your clients, right? Yeah. Like when you build a product, you build it for perfection, right? That's the way a lot of our cabinet builders are, a lot of our sign makers are. Like they build products because they know they can do it a better way. Can they go buy cheaper products? Yeah, they can go buy them and resell them, but they know how to build their business, success. Like Sean Morley is a perfect example of it, right? He's been doing cabinetry a long time. He bought a ShopSabre 10 plus years ago, ended up buying a second ShopSabre, and he has grown with the machine. But Sean puts more material through his shop than most cabinet shops. And he's able to do it with his ShopSabre without falling behind. And even he's admitted, like, it might be time to buy a second machine.
Yep.
But, you know, there's guys out there that are doing less work than he is that will claim that they can't keep up. And it's like there's so many things in your shop you need to think about from an efficiency standpoint. Again, old school versus new school fabrication, right? The technology that you're using in your shop. Okay, you have a CNC machine, but what are you doing to set up the job? What are you doing to, you know, carry the sheets? You know, do you have a loader, or do you have a lift, or do you have an unload table? Like, Sean has all this stuff in place to streamline his shop. He doesn't need a big loader, unloader machine. He even admitted that. Like, it's slower for him. He's not a shop that runs 24/7, right? He doesn't run around the clock. So if there's any amount of downtime, the loader, unloader really doesn't save him any time, unless his machine's running all day, every day. Like,
But that's where it's being smart with your business and knowing what you need and what you don't need, right?
Correct.
Sure, you could have gone out and spent the money and say, hey, I have this big fancy machine that you really don't need.
correct. And that's where, like, there is a level of, you have to understand what your needs are and then assess it. Like, yeah, can you spend $180,000 on a machine? Yep, you probably can. Do you need to?
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that they can get by spending 80 grand and achieve the same success financially. And really, that's what it comes down to. You know, when you look at breaking, you know, and again, there's machines out there that are 20 grand, and guys think they can do with a $20,000 machine that what they can do with a $100,000 machine. Like, there is steps in the level for a reason.
Yep.
Like, ShopSabre's not the cheapest machine out there either. We're not the most expensive machine. We're kind of that middle, like, you have to find that niche market. And if you're a hobbyist in your garage and trying to cut one sheet a year, maybe spending 60 grand on a machine isn't the right answer, right?
Probably not.
But if you're a shop that, like, your living is you have to cut 2 kitchens, 3 kitchens a month, yeah, you probably need a $60,000 to $80,000 machine, right?
Yep.
Now, if you're trying to do 2 to 6 kitchens a day, you probably need more than a $80,000 machine, right? I mean, there's levels that you have to consider as a business. And a lot of businesses start as old school, right? We're cutting with a saw. Well, the next step is buy the machine.
Yep.
A lot of times, the next step is the next machine. Either you add another one of the machines you have to expand your capabilities, or you upgrade to the next level of machine. And so, like, there's a lot of people in the world that, like, kind of lose track of that. You're not buying necessarily one machine to fit everything you do. Your needs may grow over the next 10 years. So you may have to consider upgrading a machine or adding, you know, more features to your machine. You know, that's another thing. Like, you look at drill heads as another example. Like, is a technology old school versus new school? Like, the old school way of thinking was every machine should have a drill head on it. But with the new school technology and all the software that's out there now, not everybody needs a drill head. The machines have become so efficient that the average shop doesn't benefit from a drill head.
And are there still guys that want to have that or say they need it just because
Absolutely.
they believe that?
Absolutely.
And
There's
then
guys
you
out
have
there.
to convince them that they don't, because it's just a waste of your money, waste of your space on your table.
Yeah. And that's exactly what you end up with on a standpoint of status, right? Sometimes it's the status that's more important, right? Oh, well, my machine's got this, 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 and this, right? But you don't use it.
But I never use this and this. But
Correct.
I have 4 of these thises, but I only use 2 of them. Like, just so you can say that you do. Like, that's exactly what you're saying, though. Like, just because you have 4 whatever's on your machine and you only use 2 of them, who cares if you say you have all 4? Like,
Well,
it doesn't matter.
Again, it's status sometimes. And, you know, there's some mentality of working to the future, right? What am I going to grow into? But that's the beauty of, like, equipment like ours is very versatile. You can add certain features in the field. You can do certain things. But it's about selecting the right piece of equipment. Don't buy the model that doesn't allow you to do it in the future, right?
Right.
If you see that yourself going there in the future. Like, that's the reason why some guys will consider pros versus IS, right? A pro machine is a very capable machine, but an IS has some advanced features that the pro just simply doesn't have. And sometimes guys will just consider, I need to step up the IS, not because I need it today, because I might need it in 5 years.
Yep.
And there's something to be said about that. So, you know, as you kind of think about the end of your year here and you start to think about, like, what you're doing for next year, you got to think about, like, new school versus old school. Like, again, don't buy a plasma table that maybe doesn't have the capabilities that you're going to need in a year, right? Like, the example of that is there's bolt together machines that are really, decent machines out there. I mean, Langmuir is a perfect example, right?
Yep.
We sell Langmuir. They're a company that we just purchased not too long ago and make a really, really good machine. There is a level of user that those machines fit really well. But if you know that you're going to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, need to get into high definition, all that, like, it's probably not the right machine.
Right.
consider the fact that you may want to step up at, right now. And again, that's where Sidekick versus ShopMaster. ShopMaster, has some high def features in it, adjustable water tables. There's some cool stuff there in those machines for the future. But again, not everybody needs it.
Right. And you just obviously, like you said, you have to look into what your company not only needs now, but is going to need in the future, and make your choices based on that, and don't just do it because you want to be the cool guy.
Right. And that, social status it's a terrible thing. A lot of people try to they try to put the social status before they put the company.
Yep.
And it's like, I read something on the internet the other day that I thought was kind of funny. It said, stop acting rich on the internet and asking for help in private.
Yeah.
Like, that is the truest thing ever. Like, a lot of these guys, like, they pretend, a lot of people in the world, not just these guys, but customers, friends, family, people I know, they act and live a different life, right?
Oh, yeah.
The way they act is not how they truly live.
We all know them people.
Yeah. And it's like, those people are business owners too, right?
Yep.
Walk around like they're the big hotshot business owner and they have all this money. And it's like, I'm one of those guys that I will tell you flat out, like, I'm not that guy. Like, people portray me that way even sometimes, where like, oh, you own ShopSabre. And like, no, I don't personally own ShopSabre.
Right.
Like, people assume that, right? But there's a whole level that, like, I take a lot of pride in what we do here, obviously, and my family does have a big part of ShopSabre. But I personally, like I said, I don't pretend that that's me. I will step in and say that my father started the company and I'm happy to help. But like, for me, I'm more about like, I will ask for help when I need help. Like, I've posted that online many times to our customers, like, hey, I need some assistance on this. Like, tell me what your thoughts are. Because I don't know the answer, right? And I think a lot of businesses can really win when they're willing to admit they don't know something and need to learn something.
Well, it's what you always say. Don't be the smartest guy in the room. I mean,
Exactly.
You say it all the time, but it's true, though.
Yeah.
Like, if you're unwilling to just ask for help, like you said, or think you're just going to give somebody an answer that'll get them by just to maybe stop them from asking for a day or two, like,
correct.
That does no good for anybody.
ShopSabre.com.
Our website is a great source for information. That's why I point that out there, is that's exactly it. Like, we try to educate customers. And that's the difference between ShopSabre and like a lot of companies. A lot of companies, they put a flashy price on the internet and then they try to get you to buy really fast.
Yep.
Like, there's a reason why we don't have a buy it now on our website, right? I mean, you have to call us and talk to us because we don't want you buying the wrong machine.
Yep.
Like, the last thing I want is people that invest in the wrong technology because it only hurts us long term. Like, our sales guys are really focused on asking questions. And some people hate it, I'll be honest. There's a lot of people that love the fact that we talk to them and help them. But there's a small minority of people out there that are just like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to buy something. Like,
But then at the same time, if you just go out and be that guy that says, I want to buy something, then what are you going to do if you buy the wrong thing and it
Correct.
doesn't work? Then you're going to come and make ShopSabre or whoever you bought it from look like the bad guy because
Correct.
you picked the wrong thing.
and that's what worries me about. That's why I've never done it that way, is because exactly, like, I don't want people to like, well, this machine doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work because you bought the wrong thing, right? But like, you think about that in your business. If you're listening to this, like, do you go into a home and just cookie cutter sell cabinets? I bet not.
No, because most kitchens aren't the same size, shape, or look or whatever, right? So
Correct.
You can't
And
really do that.
And that's my point, is like sign makers. Like, do you just build a sign and that's what they get? Right. No, most of these guys go out there, you measure the building, you're looking at like, okay, how is it going to fit logistically on the, on the building or in the entranceway or whatever you're doing? And what is the owner of the company's expectations? What is their feel? What do they like, right?
Right.
You ask questions. It's the same thing we do. Like, it's the same thing anybody should do in business. It's, again, old school versus new school, right? The old school way of doing things was, a lot more complicated, right? Because you had to hand draw things out and do it. Like, the new school way, we have CAD.
Yep.
Like, you can encompass that in your daily business. So now the process of going out, measuring the building, probably only takes hours, right?
Yeah.
Because you have laser measuring tools. You have things that you can do now, where the old school way of doing, if you do it the old school way, like, you're out there with tape measures, and maybe some people are still doing it that way for certain applications, but like, then you're drawing it on a piece of drafting paper.
Yeah.
And like, okay, now does that look good? Okay, now we have to measure it out and cut it. Like, so much slower. So like, as you get into that new school mentality, it's like, yeah, you could still give that same experience, right? I come out, measure your building, take pictures, do all that. But now I upload it into the computer and the software does everything for me. I send you over a rendering. You can see it and visual validate it. And then I send it over to my new equipment and my equipment cuts it.
Yeah, and I think it's funny you bring that up because just the other day, I think it was last Friday, we had a guy out to the house to measure for carpet.
Okay.
And he was in and out in less than 20 minutes. And Natalie was amazed because he just set up these little things in a room, spun in a circle, and measured it all with lasers. And he just, like you said, put it into a computer. And she was like, he didn't take out a tape measure, didn't do nothing. And I'm like, yeah, that's the new technology. They advanced with technology and aren't measuring your house with a tape measure anymore.
You know what I love about that is that's actually how I did my Christmas lights. So my wife was giving me a hard time because she's like, how do you know how many Christmas lights we need? And I actually used my cell phone. There's an app on the iPhone called Measure. And it actually, you take your phone out and you can actually like, if you get close enough to it, you can like pick a point and then point it at the other point and hit another point and it will tell you the distance. And I measured my Christmas light, my front of my house that way. Like I'm just on the driveway, just quick measured it out. And I was like, okay, I need 2 strands of these. Like they were 50-foot things. I'm like, I need 2 of them for what I need to put up. And yeah, my wife was like, oh, are you sure you got enough? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to be right, you know? And they showed up. And like I said, I've done half the house and I am just under half the lights. So like I'll have just enough to get around the corners of both edges of the house. Like I have, the numbers should check out,
So
you know?
it worked exactly how it's supposed to.
Correct, exactly. But it was a technology I used.
Yep.
Like, but I think about like the way my dad would have had to do that. Like he would have had to probably like measure it.
Yeah, put
like,
the ladder up and move it 6 times, measure, 10 feet.
Either that
whatever,
or I'm thinking like the rolling meter stick things.
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
that? You know, where
Yeah.
you walk?
Yep.
Like, remember though people doing that when they used to
Yep,
walk?
for sure.
Like, I'm thinking like that's what my dad probably had to do to like make sure when I was a kid that we had enough Christmas lights for the house, right? But like with me, I just took my phone out and like, does that make me lazier? No, I incorporated.
It makes you smarter.
Correct. I incorporated technology and saved myself a bunch of time because what probably took my dad hours to do, I did in a matter of 15 minutes.
Yep.
And then again, I didn't have to drive to the store and go buy all those lights. I just went online, found the lights that we wanted, ordered them. My wife vetoed it and then ordered the other ones, you know. But it's the point being is like new school versus old school.
Yep.
Like there's again, going back to it, there's a lot of people out there that buy different Christmas lights, right? Like you can buy the old school like halogen bulb, the bulb breaks and you have to find it in the string to get your lights to work, or you can buy the LEDs, right?
Yep.
If one goes bad, it doesn't shut the whole string down. But now you get into these permanent lights that people are hanging up. And like I said, we just found out about them and we've now put them up. But like it's the different levels, right? Not everybody needs the permanent lights or wants them,
Yep.
right? But my wife does. She's big into party planning and that, like I said. And so for her, it made sense for our situation. But does that mean everybody needs to spend the money on those lights? No. And so, like, I think it kind of fits in equipment and the mindset of like software in your business and things like. There's different levels because there's different users.
Yep.
Not everybody is the same. So if you're buying a machine or a piece of equipment or a software in your company, and it's always the same, it's cookie cutter, right? How really adaptive to your business is that?
Probably not very.
It's the same reason when you buy ERP systems for your business, or if you buy, a CRM system for your business. Like there's so many programs out there because they all have different features and things that fit different businesses, and not every single software will fit every single company.
So just like when you're doing research on what machine you want to buy, research the software and see what's going to work best for you.
Correct. Exactly. Like you will ultimately end up deciding what is going to fit your business. And like I encourage people as they kind of look at it, like you have to think that way because again, if you just listen to one internet troll tell you that you got to go spend $200,000 because that's the way you should do it, like you're probably going to spend money you don't need to spend.
Yep.
Simple as that. Like in the end, you may find, 1 out of 10 guys may find like I could benefit from that machine. But I'd be willing to bet you 90% of people would never benefit from listening to that guy because that guy already took step 1 and 2 and is at step 3 where you're taking step 1. If you try to mimic what step 3 is on step 1, yeah, you may get lucky and it accelerates your business and you end up where you need to, but you may end up buying software that's 10 times the cost of what you need to buy.
Yep.
Because you just listen to some guy who said like, oh, this software is way better than that other stuff. Well, for what you're doing, the other software might do more than you need.
Yeah, it's probably not. So spending all that extra money isn't going to really improve anything.
Yep.
At the end of the line, you're just going to still be where you could have been with spending half the money.
Oh, totally agree. Yeah, and and the same token goes for the opposite. Like, obviously, we have people that try to get by on software too. We've seen that too.
Oh, yeah.
Where guys buy, I'm going to use the free thing online. Well, it's free for a reason.
Get what you pay for.
Yeah, right? I mean, it doesn't have some of the features or support or things you might need down the road.
Yep.
And maybe you're okay with that. But again, if you kind of research and figure out what your needs are, and a lot of times just be forthcoming. Like, this is my expectations. Then somebody can tell you if your expectations are going to be met with what you're looking at.
And it goes back to what we talked about previously on previous episodes is invest wisely.
That's right.
It's basically what it comes down to. You just got to spend your money wisely, do your research, and spend it on the things you need and not just things you think you need.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. Like, invest in yourself. Invest accordingly to what your expectations are. But also, like, don't be so blind that you can't see through the smoke.
Yep.
You know, like, unfortunately in this world, like, there's a lot of advertising out there. And a lot of people will mislead people, right? Blatantly mislead people because of what they sell. Like, you got to understand what you're buying, why you're buying it, you know. And again, you know, I feel like ShopSabre is one of the few companies out there, you know, being that we're American made and that we will invite you in here and you can tour our facility and see it, like, that really is forthcoming with information.
It's really, you're not hiding anything. You're not
Correct.
putting up a smoke screen. You're
Well,
just
there's no reason
putting
to.
it all out there, right?
Like, I feel like when we do it the way we do, there's no reason to hide it because we can be proud of everything we do.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, do we make mistakes? Absolutely. Do we do things that probably we could do better? Yeah. Are we constantly working on that? Yes.
Yes.
Like, that's the difference is, like, we know that. We're always innovating. We're always moving forward. Like, we just redesigned the IS machine this year. Not because the old IS machine was bad. It's just, obviously, we started to see, like, as the market, you know, needs change, like, there's things we could improve to make the machine even better.
Right. And more appealing to those
correct,
customers
exactly.
that want to be at the higher level, but still want to
Correct.
Spend the right budget.
And as technology becomes more available, prices come down too on certain technologies. So you can incorporate things into a machine that you couldn't 10 years ago.
Right.
And so there's some of that you have to consider too, is that as things advance, like, that's why we update models and we do things. It's not because the way we were doing it is bad, but the economy and the industry sometimes outgrows you, you know?
I mean, it's the same reason that people upgrade their shops and upgrade machines that they've had, right? Because
That's why you buy new trucks and
there's
cars,
new
right?
technology available, new things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Things are
reason why
better.
people don't drive collector cars every day as their daily drivers anymore.
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong. It'd be sweet to drive around in an old Chevelle every single day. But it probably isn't practical given the technology that's available now in new cars.
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong. Love the old Chevelles, the old Camaros. You know, like, it's cool. But, like, I kind of like my seat heater.
Right.
Kind of like the
Power
heated,
windows.
Yeah, the heated steering wheel in the winter.
A digital stereo that you can just push a button and have a station, not to turn a little hand dial.
Power steering.
Yeah.
You know, power brakes. You know, there's some stuff there that, like, okay, that's pretty cool. I think I'm going to go with it,
Yeah.
right? You know, like, there's convenience options, and then there's things that, like, just make your life easier.
But man, did those old cars and trucks look awesome driving
And
on
they
the road.
sounded sweet.
Oh, they're so cool. I
Like-
would love to have an old 50s truck to drive around.
Yeah, like a C10,
awesome.
F100. Those things are sweet.
Get 2.5 miles to the gallon.
Yeah. Yeah, like, my dad has a old Nova that he's had for a little while, and he always is tinkering with it, and he always adds, like, more to it. And I'm pretty sure at this point, like, it struggles to get to the gas station and back. Like, he could drive from his house to the gas station and then try to drive home, and he'll almost run out of gas. Like, it's
Needs to have a standing gas
yeah,
tank at his house.
it's a drag car is what it really is. But, like, he made it road legal, and it's like it has no business driving down the road. Like, it's very, very uneconomical. You know, like,
yeah.
it is a vehicle that should belong on the track. But it's a cool car. Like I said, it's one of those things that he loves it. It's his toy.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's but again, there's a reason why he owns another vehicle to drive to and from work every day. Like,
Yep.
it's not a practical vehicle, you know, and it's the same thing you got to think about in your business, like practicality of what you're buying. Yeah, you could probably go spend $250,000 on a big giant machine, but it barely fits in your building and there's nothing else going to happen in your building. Maybe not the best investment, right?
Probably not. And
So-
you probably can get just as good a results with something that's better fit for your building, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, instead of a car, you could just buy a horse.
Might take you a little longer to get to the finish line, but you'll get there.
You'll get there eventually. But no, like I said, you know, that's kind of all I had today. It's just new school versus old school. I mean, there's a lot of things we touched on, but, you know, the big takeaway from today is just, like, be willing to do your research. Be willing to talk to the companies. You know, and ShopSabre is one of those companies. Like, we're here through the end of the year with some sales that we'd love to chat with you about. I mean, we got a lot of opportunity right now for you, but we're not afraid to, like, really dive into the uncomfortable conversations. You know, we're willing to help you look at options and features and machines and say, you know what, maybe you're looking at the wrong thing. We're willing to do that. It's uncomfortable sometimes to tell somebody that what you're thinking is not correct, but it's better to have told you than to, you know, just take advantage of you. So our team is really good about that. I think, if you have any questions about this industry specifically, or, just where you're going with this equipment, I mean, I'd say call our guys. They're here, always willing to help.
Absolutely.
I guess that's all I got today. You got anything else for these guys?
No, I think that was pretty good. We covered it all, I think.
Yeah, so that's gonna be today. I think we're gonna get back at it here, but obviously, if you got any questions, you can always reach out to us. Reaching out to us right at ShopSabre.com. You can send an email to Nick or me. It's just Nick or Brandon at ShopSabre.com, and we're always willing to jump in and answer questions, assist you, point you in the right direction. But obviously, be sure to check out our YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We got some really cool stuff happening for the end of the year. We're going to be at PRI here in December, so we're excited to be at that show. Like I said, a lot of cool things, a lot of moving parts. But like I said, if you have any questions, just give us a shout. But with that, I'm Brandon.
I'm Nick.
Thanks for talking shop with ShopSabre.